Okay, here we go.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
Welcome, CoCo Cruisers. You're listening to episode 91 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. Welcome. I'm John Linville, here with my co-host, of course. We got Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, everyone.
Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello and happy holidays, everybody.
And, of course, Mr. Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas to the CoCo world.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. It's Christmas time, and there's the usual spirit of the season going around. Unfortunately, in the CoCo world, we do have one little bit of bad news that hit us recently. Mr. Bob Swogert, the giant of a man, literally, was deeply involved with Glenside and CoCo Fest for many years. Not unexpectedly, but we got the news now that Bob has passed from this world. A good man, a very jovial, friendly person that will be missed. We'd like to express our condolences and our give our regards for Bob and his family. Speaking of CoCo Fest, I believe the next one is scheduled for about 4 months away now. And of course, we have Tandy Assembly in about 9 months from now. 2 things to look forward to in the community. Anybody working on anything cool recently? Any nifty projects or anything at all?
No, it's Christmas season. Too busy.
Yeah, too a little busy. Yeah, it's busy. I'm hoping to crack open my project list and work on a few things over the next couple of weeks. We'll see if that happens or not. But so far I've at least dug out a couple of spots that I might could work in. So, what about acquisitions? Anybody buy anything cool? I've kind of gotten a little bit back into some eBay recently. Not a lot of specifically CoCo stuff, but I did. So I picked up something on eBay that's definitely CoCo related. When it showed up, there was a little bit extra, something, and there was a note inside the extra bag that indicated that the person had recognized my name and acknowledged my role as a host of the podcast, and sent a little extra along as an expression of gratitude or thanks or whatever.
Well, that's
That was
awesome.
definitely nice to be recognized. Get some benefit out of doing a little work on the podcast. So I reached out through the eBay messaging system and thanked that person. I'm going to leave his name out of it just so we don't attract unwanted attention or whatever there. But again, I do appreciate it. It's definitely a nice gesture. Why don't we take that as the start of the podcast? We'll take a short break and be back with some announcements.
A Christmas gift from Radio Shack.
Before Christmas, they claimed they were bored. But then I found Radio Shack's incredible selection of electronic games. He's rescuing the fair maiden with the Kingman game. She's exploring dangerous new worlds with Zackman. And with the alien chase game, he can do space battle with an opponent or by himself. There are more gifts if anyone's bored. I was!
Fascinating electronic games from $7.95 to $59.95. Only at Radio Shack.
If you're bored at Christmas time, please enjoy this chipmunk rhyme. We kindly suggest to you, listen to the CoCo Crew. John will keep us up to date. Neil reviews the games of late. Lots of info you can use. It's the CoCo Crew.
All right, welcome back, CoCo Cruisers. Again, you're listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are available on Twitter with the Twitter handle of @CoCoCrewPodcast. If you are a Twitter user prone to sending tweets, feel free to tweet at us, and we may actually tweet back. We have a Facebook group for the podcast called the CoCo Crew Podcast, or several words. So if you're on Facebook, feel free to join the group and introduce yourself and maybe get a little early news or interact with the hosts or, give us your feedback that way, whatever works for you. We have an RSS feed available at cococrew.org. If that's too DIY for you, then we are available on Apple Podcasts, also available on Google Play. And if you prefer to stream the podcast rather than download episodes, then we're available for streaming through Spotify, Stitcher, and on TuneIn. So for some time, I've been taking the audio podcasts and doing a little conversion on them to turn them into a video form and putting them on YouTube. And when I say video form, it's really just a graph or voice, the audio graph of our voices, but background pictures of the show notes and that sort of thing. But you can watch it on your YouTube player. The big advantage, I think, for consuming the podcast through YouTube is the subtitles, which YouTube does a good job with subtitles. So I'm told that if English is not your first language, of course, if you're hard of hearing, that subtitles can be very useful for consuming the show. If that sounds appealing to you, you may want to check us out on YouTube. We have a playlist in the show notes. We are a member of the Throwback Network. This is a list of retro-themed podcasts centered around 80s culture. If you are caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for something else to listen to, we recommend you check out the Throwback Network. We're also listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This is also a list of retro-themed podcasts, in this case centered around home video game consoles, and home computers from the 80s. If you're caught up on the CoCo Crew Podcast and looking for other ways to occupy your time, we recommend that you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew Podcast used to be hosted by Cyber Ears. Cyber Ears has, of course, disappeared now. The podcast is now hosted at anchor.fm. So that's Anchor, https://anchor.fm/CoCo Crew. Personally recommend that you consume the podcast feed through our RSS feed at cococrew.org. So if we do ever have to move again, hopefully we'll be just as tricky then as we were this last time and make it so you never have to change anything. Anyway, we got great service from Cyber Ears over the years, and so far it's been pretty easy to work with Anchor. Thank you to the folks at Anchor.fm for hosting the podcast. So if you want to reach out to the host of the show via email, we have some email addresses set up for that. The first three are reach all of the hosts. Those are show, SHOW, at cococrew.org. That's @CoCocrew.org. We also have podcast, PODCAST, at cococrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at cococrew.org. And if you'd prefer to reach out just to one of the hosts, then we have individual emails available. You can reach me at John, JOHN, at cococrew.org. Neil is Neil, NEIL, at cococrew.org. Mike is Mike, MIKE, at cococrew.org. And of course, Boise, BOISY, at cococrew.org. Let's see, we have listed here a few items in real life that might be of interest to our listeners. At least we think so. April 14th through 16th of 2023, we have Vintage Computer Festival East. PCF East 2023 will be a hybrid show, in person and streaming online. Themes for this year, number one, computers in education. Where? InfoAge Science and History Museums, Wall, New Jersey, April 14th through the 16th, 2023. April 22nd and 23rd, 2023, we have the 31st annual last Chicago CoCo Fest. Admission is free for the entire two-day CoCo Fest event this year. To ensure adequate seating and comfort, we're strongly encouraging folks to pre-register for the fest online at handylist.com or by contacting Grant Leedy. Grant actually reached out today, said that the pre-registration is available for vendors now. If you're thinking of going to CoCo Fest, it's time to start planning. It's going to be held at the Holiday Inn and Suites Chicago Carol Stream in Carol Stream, Illinois. So part of the Chicagoland area. Coming up in July 22nd and 23rd, we have Classic Game Fest, the biggest retro gaming event in Texas. If you're in the Austin, Texas area and looking for a retro gaming event, then you may want to check out Classic Game Fest. If you go, report back, let us know if it was worthwhile. For July 28th through the 30th of 2023, we have the Southern Fried Gaming Expo for Atlanta, Georgia, at Marriott Renaissance Waverly. If you are in the southeastern part of the United States and looking for a gaming event, consider heading to Atlanta in late July. Make sure your AC is working in your car if you do that. Coming up a little bit later than that, scheduled for September 30th through October 2nd of 2023, we have, of course, Tandy Assembly. And so this is the big Tandy event that we're focused on in this podcast. Brings in Tandy machines of all stripes, color computers, the Z80 base machines, the Tandy 1000s, pocket computers, Model 100s, whatever you got. We love to see it. We love to cross-pollinate and talk about Tandy and just enjoy the machines. So make your way to Springfield, Ohio, pretty close to Dayton, and come and hang out with us. Bring your Tandy machines and show us what you're doing with them. All right. Well, that's the last event I've got listed on the announcements. So why don't we draw this little announcements bit to the close, and then we'll be back after a break with some news.
Fourth.
All right, CoCo Maniacs, welcome back for the news.
Kicking off the news this month, some games for you to enjoy over the holiday season from Jim Gary on your MC10. Kicking off with number one is Little Brick Out by Steve Wozniak. Now this is really cool because this was a game that Steve wrote back for the Apple II, showing off the BASIC on the Apple II and what it can perform. So now this has been ported over to the MC10. Kind of cool to see. And then followed by that, Bulls and Cows by Creative Computing, 1976. And here's a cool one, Explore Your MC10 or Alice. This is actually a conversion from the Metro Alice. Basically, it just walks you through the machine, like the different ports, the graphics chip and sound, that sort of thing. It's really cool. And then we got another one here called Race Demo, a game for the TRS-80 MC10, Metro Alice, Dungeon of Doom from Osborne Books, 1984, and a basic file named China.bass.
Came up to his kind of usual grouping of projects and sharing with us via YouTube. Pretty neat.
Yeah, it's great to see. Jim's definitely keeping busy. Speaking of keeping busy, we got Paul Shoemaker up next. He posted on Facebook group. He's messing around and maybe developing a fancier version of a simple type-in game from Creative Computing called Camel. So and there's different updates he's posted showing along the way of all the work he's done. Looks like a pretty cool project that he's doing.
Yeah, it's nice to see that pop up.
Wow, here's another pack of games for you to play over the holidays. If you have a Super Sprite FM, that is, from Pierre Surratt. He's got another pack of 8 AGD converted games for your Super Sprite FM Plus board. That's something I'm going to do over the holidays for real. I have one of those boards, and I built it, I tested it, and I never did anything with it. So I want to actually get a station set up and dig into some of these packs here, because, I mean, these games look phenomenal. I mean, seeing these screenshots and reviews and YouTube videos. So I gotta dig into that. Last but not least in this first news section is from L. Curtis Boyle. Nitrous 9 Ease of Use Edition for CoCo 3 is now out of beta. So this is official now. So if you've been using that, you can get the latest version. And so far, he has the 6309 versions and 6009 versions available just for the CoCo 3 and the Gimme X. So I think the Matchbox ones are coming next, it shows here. Probably by the time you listen to this, they'll be out.
He does a good job supporting the various platforms, and not just the CoCo.
Very cool.
And a lot of people use Nitrous 9 quite a bit as the core of their hobby or whatever. So it's cool that Curtis and friends keep that going. Kind of amazing, really.
It is. Yeah, good work, Curtis.
All right, our next one is from Phoenix Resale at YouTube. How I accidentally bought the ultimate retro TV. Guy was shopping in a local video game store and happened to see a big Sony Trinitron television. Tossed him an offer and was able to take it home. So he had no intention of getting that when he went out, which I think we've all found ourselves in that situation where, well, I was
the best days, right?
Yeah, exactly. You stumble into something and it works out. Cool video. Check it out.
Those are always the stories where somewhere you say, do you realize how much this cost when it was new?
Exactly.
25 years ago, but
Our next one is from Adafruit, an online video timings calculator. Calculator where you can put in number of pixels you want, the vertical and horizontal pictures, and the pixels, and the refresh rate, and it will give you the timings in various different formats, aspect ratio. This is definitely a cool one, and the video that it comes with is also interesting, worth watching if you're working with raw video. I'm sure that would come in handy for your CoCo.
Well, you never know exactly how you use it, but I thought it was interesting. Kind of reinforces the message that video signals, basically collecting a series of timers for the various parts of the video signal. Back in the day, I know this isn't a Linux podcast, but back in the day, you needed to do that for, especially if you had any kind of oddball Super VGA monitor. You wanted to take advantage of those with your X Windows server. You needed to feed it some kind of X Windows timings line. Kind of the same thing. So.
We've got one from RGB302, My Life in Gaming at YouTube, another YouTube video. The 240p test suite, optimizing your HD TV for retro games.
Kind of figured Neil would want to jump in right here, but the 240p, I'm not sure that's even an official designation, but a lot of people are familiar with the 1080p or 1080i or 480p, sort of retrofitted on the old standard in terms of the resolutions. A lot of the older systems actually didn't do a properly formatted NTSC video signal. They basically didn't do the interlace part. They basically, instead of doing one frame and then the other, they basically did the first frame and then the first frame again, and then the first frame again. And so that became known as 240p because they're not interlaced, so it's 240 lines progressive. It's not really 240 lines, but kind of fits with the nomenclature. Anyway, when you try to feed one of those signals, your composite video signal into your more modern television, sometimes it's not going to look as well as you need or want it to look, especially if you're a really picky video file type of person. So there are systems out there that can run this 240p test suite, which I think is basically a custom ROM for certain video consoles and such that can help you. Kind of like the enhanced version of you used to get the DVDs with the Dolby on it, and you could buy the blue glasses and adjust your TV with those. I think it's sort of like that, but I don't really know that much about it. But thought that was I thought it fit with some of this other stuff like the timings calculator. Hopefully, I'll wait for this next one too.
Yeah, well, on the past one here, I'll just chime in real quick. I've actually never used any of those converters. I am into retro gaming consoles, but I'm a stickler. I still use the original old CRTs. I know that eventually that's going to have to change, so I should jump on the bandwagon here and get myself updated.
All right, our next story comes from Tyler Wild at PCGamer.com. How WASD became the standard PC controller scheme. This is kind of a fun article that's talking about, the origin of that. Why did we settle on, or why did so many games use the WASD key combination? I think Doom is a big one that used that. They don't take credit for coming up with that. Why wasn't it? I guess there were other combinations back in the day, like ZXCV, and this is before joysticks were maybe as standard or as widespread. So people were using keyboard controls. Fun article.
All right, the next news item is pictures of some of my color computers exhibited at X-Retro SC Florianópolis, SC Brazil, on November 5th, 2022, by Luciano Scharf. This is a Facebook post that Luciano put up with some other Brazilian CoCo luminaries in them. Looks like a fun time. Lots of CoCos, CP400s, the Brazilian CoCo clones. Some cool pictures of games like Dragonfire and even a video. And just looks like they had a great time. John and I were invited to go down there to Brazil at some point to attend one of these. We never could quite make it, John. We had planned to do it one year, and then it would be really cool to go down there and kind of bust the party for them.
That would be cool. I'd like to do that. But
fun times. Glad to see the CoCo being cherished and the clones being cherished out there in South America. Thank you, gentlemen, for continuing the work down there. Good stuff. The next news item is remastered box template for Direct Connect Modem Pack catalog number 26-2228 by Antonio Caballero. This is a box that Antonio, looks like he, I guess, designed or scanned in or maybe redesigned in a vector format. I'm not exactly sure how he did it. For the Direct Connect Modem Pack. I had one of these. Tandy was selling them pretty cheap there at the end of the CoCo's life. I had a fun hack. In fact, I think Mike, you and I had experimented with this DCM pack at some point.
Yeah.
You could put one on each CoCo and connect two CoCos together via the RJ11 cable and have CoCos talk to each other that way. So, interesting. All right, the next news item is I've been playing around with controllers again by Nick Brizovac. Nick posted this Facebook post to the TR City Color Computer Facebook page. It looks like he 3D printed is this a rotor controller? It looks like a paddle gamepad controller for the CoCo.
Yeah,
pretty neat.
I wasn't quite sure, but yeah, some kind of combination controller with keys on it.
Certainly something I haven't seen before for the CoCo. Good experimentation there, Nick.
It's cool to see people experimenting with different controller types.
Well, you've done this before too, right, John? You did something similar.
Yeah. So it reminds me of a different period of the retro computing hobby where we were more worried about experimenting with our CoCos and, maybe less worried about fighting with each other. But
yeah. The good old days.
Yeah.
Since 1994, Cloud9 has been making cool stuff for your color computer, like the Cloud9 Mini Flash, a flash cartridge for your color computer or Dragon. The Mini Flash gives you a total of 4 16K banks of flash memory. You can easily flash ROM images into any of the 4 16K banks. Store your favorite DOS ROMs and game packs on the Mini Flash. And the Mini Flash is perfect for prototyping your own ROMs without the need for an EEPROM burner. The Mini Flash comes with flash programming software and test utilities. It's preloaded with HDB-DOS for DriveWire and 2 games from Retro Tinker, CoCo Dooku and Follow CoCo, so you can use the Mini Flash immediately. The Cloud9 Mini Flash works on all Color Computer and Dragon models and is housed in a high-quality injection-molded cartridge case. The Mini Flash, only from Cloud9. Cool stuff for your color computer. Visit cloud9tech.com for details.
Ring in the holidays. Ring out the year. With the MC10. Love and good cheer. Take home an MC10 for the holidays. MC10 for the holidays.
What's a celebration without the MC10 microcolor computer to lend sparkle and elegance, and the Jim Gary collection of games to keep things bubbling along? Greet the season and your friends. MC10 for the holidays and all year long.
The next news item is many of you will have heard of an esoteric programming language, Brainfuck, by Elliot Williams at Hackaday. This is an interesting article. It's actually an article about two esoteric programming languages, one interpreter. I don't know how many of you folks listening have ever heard of Brainfuck, but it's a very interesting, simple language. I think it has like 6 or 7 tokens. I implemented a Brainfuck interpreter in Nitrous 9 in the 609 assembly language. It's actually part of the Nitrous 9 project. And this particular article talks about Brainfunge, a Brainfuck interpreter written in Bufunge. I've never used the Bufunge language, but it's an example of a programming language that's nearly impossible to use because it's too simple. As someone has quoted in the comments, it's very true. Very true.
I think they call those esoteric languages these days, the ones that are kind of there more as a mental exercise or, whatever. Yeah. I mean, if I recall, it's like you have to form a string by basically like starting with A and like, increase until you get to whatever letter you want to, and then you move to the next letter.
Right. I think is it the dot that brings you to the next cell? It's like sets the pointer to the next cell, then you do plus, plus, or minus, minus.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Anyway, it messes with your brain.
It does. And I think other than the name Brainfuck being objectionable, it would have been nice to have, this would have been a cool language to talk about in a computer science class. When I took programming languages for computer science, the esoteric programming language we talked about was Snowball, right?
Yeah.
The professor introduced an intentionally obscure language to just show how different it was, so we could, get our heads out of just the C and the C++ that we were using all the time. This would have been an equally bizarre one to teach or to talk about.
Snowball, is that the one that has the come from command, kind of like the opposite of go to? I really don't know how
I don't remember, but I can tell you there'll be a snowball's chance in hell that I'll use that language again.
Oh, well. All right, well, let's see. Moving on to the next group. The first item is a link from Al Williams, one of the writers at Hackaday. To create a compiler step by step. He's got a site that has a create your own compiler tutorial. At first, I thought this was a link to a series in Byte magazine back in the 80s or 90s that was create your own compiler and basically walked you through writing a Pascal compiler, I think in C. But this appears to be writing something smaller for some subset, I think, of JavaScript. I honestly don't know a lot about JavaScript, but it is a popular language these days. And anyway, if writing your own compiler is interesting to you, then you might want to explore some of the links in this article, and maybe you can learn something. And if you get the principles down, maybe you can bring us your own weird language to the CoCo and lead a crusade to get us all programming in it. That'd be pretty cool. Let's see what you can do. And so, and then along those lines, the next item, it's a YouTube video from Astro Sam. That's YouTube. And making my own programming language and coding a game in it. So he goes and conducts that exercise. He develops his own programming language called Z# using C++, and then he goes through the process of coding an entire game in it. It looks like it's about 10 minutes. Might be a good way to use 10 minutes of your time if you're interested in people doing, like you say, compiler projects and language experimentation. So there you go. You're welcome. All right, so switching gears a little bit. Since we're not a Commodore podcast, I don't know how many people really have heard of GEOS, which I guess existed for the Commodore 64, the 128 and the Plus4, and also the Apple II from a company called Berkeley Softworks.
There's also a really good DOS version of it as well.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. pretty well regarded, and it's sort of like the Commodore version of running Nitrous 9 or something, in the sense that on your little 8-bit computer from the 80s, you can pop up something that gives you a graphical environment that's almost, Mac-like in terms of functionality, even WYSIWYG and that sort of stuff. I'm not sure if the underlying system is as advanced as OS 9, but if you're feeling smug about the CoCo and OS 9 and the graphical environment, maybe you should look at what was available for GEOS. And then why is it in the news? Is somebody has gone and reverse engineered the GEOS 6502 code for the Atari, I think, or maybe it's from the Apple, retargeted it or put it on the Atari. Apparently it works well enough that at least some of the applications that were written to run in that environment can move over and run on top of GEOS on the Atari without modification. So that's pretty cool. So why is this here? Well, just to keep you on your toes. If you're feeling smug about the CoCo, there's somebody else out there that might have a few things to say if you start bragging too much. So obviously, I'll be rooting for your CoCo, but just so you know, there are other continues out there for really cool things from the past. So here's one. This is kind of a out of the blue, or whatever. It's a YouTube video from Anders Nielsen. A simple universal modem for your project. It's a small PCB that you can add to your electronics project, and that will actually convert data to sound and back and forth. So you can add file transfers via sound or whatever to your otherwise isolated CPU project. You can get the modem without having to build it, is kind of the point of it, or at least without having to design it. So check it out. Might be useful for your project. I can see David Ladd getting excited.
All right, the next news item is controlling mechanical 7-segment displays, how RS-45 in UART works, by Great Scott at YouTube. This is a YouTube video. I like this. We're all familiar with 7-segment LED displays, but this is a 7-segment mechanical display. Think of maybe an old clock, that you might have seen back in the 70s or something, like I did growing up. This is an interesting project. It's a great opportunity to learn about RS-485, which is a serial protocol. And he does this it looks like he uses a small, I can't tell if it's an Arduino, but a real small board to do the control of the clock, and goes through the theory and waveforms of the RS-485 protocol. It's very, very good stuff.
Yeah, those are cool. Those mechanical 7-segment displays, pretty neat.
Yeah, well, actually, you know what I remember too, besides the 7-segment mechanical? Remember the clock displays that had the letters that were like pre-printed on little tiny cards?
Right,
and they would
right, just half of it would flip down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was another one.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool thing to do too, but yeah, exactly. The next news item is building a drum machine sequencer using rope core memory by Adafruit. Wow, real geek stuff here. All I can say is amazing.
Amazing that worked at all.
Yeah. The next news item, when only a TO92 will do, by Jenny List at Hackaday. I've seen these many times, of course, component level and transistors and so forth. I didn't really get into the article deeply, but apparently it talks about the TO92 and how it was a relatively small package for its day and easy to handle, easy to put on a motherboard, stuff like that. So,
it's kind of reminiscent of older stories about people with like S100 machines where the power supplies would go bad because of bad capacitors, and the capacitors were what they call soda can capacitors, where they fit well in your hand. As in if you wanted to hit somebody with it.
Yeah.
And so People would actually take and cut those apart to separate the can from the internals, and then mount modern capacitors inside the can so that you could recreate the circuit, electronically with something that looked like it was the original part. So it's kind of the same idea, but different technology.
The next news item, getting to know the 555 timer chip by Adafruit. A nice little introduction into a very common part that you will use whenever you start electronics, the 555 timer.
Yeah, a very versatile chip, amazing lifetime on those chips in terms of usefulness. They can do a lot of cool stuff, and people even build effectively logic circuits and stuff built around them, which is not really what they're for. But anyway, just kind of a general electronics knowledge, article. But
that's one of the Forrest Mims books at Radio Shack, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Project,
that's right.
So a little circle back to Radio Shack, yeah.
That's exactly right. In fact, even more relevant to our podcast, which model color computer has a 555 on the motherboard?
Got to be the CoCo 2s, right?
That's right. Ding, ding, ding.
Hack to get the colors to work, if I recall.
Exactly, yeah. Has to do with the color burst timing.
All right, here's a great game that has come out from Paul Thayer. I present to you CoCoBon for the Tandy Color Computer 3. This is a new game that Paul has created. It's, I guess, loosely based on Sokoban, which was if you're familiar with that game, fun game where you have to push. It's kind of a puzzle game where you have to push objects, boxes, things around to solve a maze. So there's a bit of logic associated with it.
Yeah, it's a great game. Yeah, it takes advantage of the CoCo 3. Nice color set.
Well, you got the link here, and you can get the game and play it for yourself. Check it out. Thanks for that, Paul.
Yep, good work.
All right, our next one is from Glenn Hewlett. It's streaming large files on the CoCo SDC.
Yeah, there's a kind of a special programming mode for like I said, for streaming large files. It was kind of put in the firmware for the CoCo SDC that was kind of passed around if you know who to ask. I don't think it's well documented, or at least not in the public user level documentation, but you can get it. But I guess there's some gotchas to dealing with that. And I guess Glenn has figured out some of them and documented them there. So good to know.
Yeah, very cool. Our next one is from Steve Blakely. This is a good MC10 link here. I came across a monitor program written in BASIC. So what Steve has done is there was a monitor program, which, of course, for the uninitiated, is a program to enter machine language, look at memory locations, things like that. Simple utility. In this case, usually you find these in machine language themselves, or like on a ROM pack or something like that. But in this case, there was one written in BASIC for the color computer, and Steve has ported it to work with the MC10. And as you know, there's not a plethora of development tools for machine language that are native to the MC10. So this would allow you to load up this basic program on your MC10, and then you could actually use it to explore and manipulate the memory on your MC10, work with machine code on your MC10. So a very, very useful thing, and certainly very much in the spirit of the kinds of things that were available in computer magazines, back in the day for home computers. So that's good to see.
AutoTerm turns your CoCo into the world's smartest terminal. Scroll text forward and backward, save, load, and delete files while online. Full support for the RS-232 pack, X modem, and even split screen for packet radio. Screen widths of 32, 40, 42, 51, or 64, plus 80-column support for the CoCo 3. Switch instantly to word processing mode. Find strings instantly. Create text. Make corrections, save, or load files. Then upload them to a remote system. Fully compatible with Telewriter. Plus full automation tools to automate dialing, keystroke, macros, uploading, and downloading. AutoTerm runs on the CoCo 2 and CoCo 3. No other computer can match your CoCo's intelligence as a terminal. AutoTerm from PXE Computing, Richardson, Texas.
CoCo Crew Podcast wishes you the happiest of holidays.
Hometown Radio Shack.
Hi, I'm really enjoying playing games at the arcade. I was wondering if you had any arcade-style game controllers for the color computer.
Well, we do sell joysticks for the CoCo.
Can you describe them?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have a plastic joystick, and there's a small push button on the side.
Do they have spring return?
Well, we also sell the deluxe joystick. It has spring return.
What's it like?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have a plastic joystick, and there's a little push button on the side and one on the top. But we do sell some other brands, too.
What are they like?
Well, they're plastic, fit in the palm of your hand. They have plastic joystick, and there's a little push buttons on the sides.
Why play games with fragile, outdated plastic controllers? Move up to professional arcade quality with the Gamester. The Gamester is the ultimate 2-button joystick controller for your color computer, Dragon or Tandy 1000. It features a genuine arcade quality joystick with 2 large arcade quality cherry switch buttons on a single surface. It sits comfortably on your lap or on your desk. Select custom furniture quality paint or stain finishes. Choose a right or left-handed configuration. And now you have the option of light up LED buttons. Find out why so many others are delighted with the Gamester. To build yours, simply reach out to Neil Blanchard by email. Neil at CoCoCrew.org. That's NEIL at CoCoCrew.org. For true arcade action, it's the Gamester.
Our next one is from Ron Rogers. I tinkered with the program and printed the P-Mode 4.1 screen 1.1 image on the laser. When I look at this article, he says that he's printed out the screen using a daisy wheel printer. Is that...
Yeah, later on he mentions PCL, so he may be conflating a couple of memories there. But my thought was that he had written something to convert the screen graphics to PCL and dump to a modern laser printer. But
yeah, I think you're right. I was more intrigued at being able to print graphics on a daisy wheel printer. I wanted to see how that was done.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as they cost, you ought to be able to. But
that's true. So, yeah, I think you're right. Looking at this as PCL, so converted to PCL, so you could send that to most modern laser printers. Understand PCL. Certainly, HP computer printers do. So, yeah, pretty cool, pretty slick.
All right. Our next news article is posted in the Facebook Brazilian color computer group from Ronovan Costa, titled CoCo Scheme, which is schematic, 1, scanned in high res from original textbook 26-3193. I downloaded this image. This is a high res scan of the original color computer schematic from the Color Computer Technical Reference Manual. So this could help somebody out. All right, next one is from Don Barber. He's posted on the Color Computer mailing list. This is titled, I made a thing and wanted to share it with the list, a CoCo USB serial pack. Now this is a really cool project because this isn't a USB host. So you're not going to run a USB keyboard or a memory stick on your CoCo. But what this is it's a direct USB connection to your modern computer. And it uses just the regular TTL logic, the 6551 serial interface, which the deluxe RS-32 pack uses, direct connect modem, and other RS-32 packs of the same era. So the good thing with this is your software doesn't have to be modified. It will be compatible with this project. So yeah, it's really cool to see this.
Yeah, I mean, it's useful to have something like that. This reminds me of the Roger Taylor packs that he made, where they were all essentially clones of the deluxe RS-232 pack, but he put different front ends on them, like Bluetooth and USB. Nice to have. I mean, I don't think that's available now, so it's kind of nice to have that sort of hardware if you like to do the kind of projects I like to do. So.
All right, next news article is from Robin Curie at Hackaday. This is really cool. Generating 2-factor authentication codes with a Commodore 64. So, again, this could be a CoCo project.
Yeah. And if you're one of the CoCo software people out there that waits for me to announce that I'm going to work on something and then you race to beat me to it, I'll pretend to claim that I'm doing this for the CoCo. So go ahead and race to beat me to it and see what you can do. So many of us deal with something like this to log into the VPN at work. I've got a little token that I actually can hold in my hand and press a button and get a number that pops up, and I use that as a part of a password. And I've got a version that also runs as an app on my phone. A lot of people have that for banks or for, I guess for Google or eBay or whatever. So it's kind of it's a pretty good excuse if you feel like you need an excuse to have a CoCo, or in this case a Commodore 64, set up on your desk. Then you can claim that you're using it for your one-time password generation.
Lot more exciting.
So I understand that some of the difficulty with that, they're using the version that kind of basically keeps track of the actual time and as part of the algorithm for generating the next number. Those algorithms are based on Unix time, which is a number of seconds from a specific time in 1970, if I recall. And just like CoCo's, any old Commodore 64, that if it has a real-time clock chip, it outputs a, the day, date, and time kind of format. Apparently, calculating the seconds until a specific date or seconds from that specific date nowadays is a little tough. A lot of math and a lot of, trying to figure out, what years had leap years. And I would think nowadays you have to account for which years we're doing leap seconds. So if you recall those, could be a bit of a challenge. But anyway, so if the Commodore 64 can do it with its crappy 6502, somebody can figure out how to make a CoCo do it. So.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
You won't even need a 6309.
That's right. Your stock 6809 will do it.
Yeah. You could probably do it on MC10.
Yeah. The next news article is from Pierre Johansson. Now, this is really cool. I know John's going to be excited about this one. Processor upgrade for the Vectrex using an Hitachi 6309 instead of the Motorola 6809. So this is a pretty thorough project here, quite a bit. They even talk about bias flashes and the whole bit on your Vectrex game console. But the game they're using for comparison is a game Scramble, which is a fairly common game on the Vectrex. It runs about 13% faster, so smoother frame rate. So that's interesting to see that it actually made a difference.
Well, I mean, this is in line with what we would expect on a CoCo, that 13%, but I don't know how much the Vectrex depends on, like, interrupts. I think is the biggest compatibility issue between them. If you have a lot of interrupts, you're going to have rewrite the code that handles them. If you just got to have the most performance you can out of your Vectrex, but for some reason you don't want to get one of the ARM-based or Raspberry Pi-based cards for your Vectrex, I guess this is a way to do it. Anyway,
cool to see.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Moving on. So we haven't heard much from Alan Huffman in a while. And so he seems to have taken some interest in what's called the Logiker 2022 Vintage Computing Christmas Challenge. And so the essence of this challenge is basically they generated a screen composed of asterisks, but printed out in like an ASCII art fashion to display 8-pointed star. And the point of the challenge is to replicate the star identically. Do your best. What's the best code you can do with it? Honestly, Alan took a lot more interest in it than I did. But so he's got a multi-part series on his blog exploring the nuances of the challenge. And doing some various implementations, including just straight prints and then prints based on data statements. And I'm not sure what other variations there are, but anyway, you see these pop up sometimes, and particularly around certain holidays or whatever. So if that's interesting to you, then you should go check out. You should check out on his blog anyway, see what he's up to. But see what how he's doing this challenge and how else you could improve on it. So go check that out. All right, these next few links are maybe a little sad, but they're newsy and hopefully of some interest. The first one is from Jenny List, one of the writers at Hackaday. It says, end of an era as LEGO to discontinue Mindstorms. And so the image shows an original Mindstorms brick. My understanding is that they're actually discontinuing the newer version of Mindstorms as well. The young man that's dating one of my daughters has a job working at the LEGO store at the local mall. So I have this verified from him that Mindstorms is really on its way out. So, if you're interested in Mindstorms and, you have a LEGO store nearby that hasn't been rated yet, you better make your way down there as quick as you can. Otherwise, you might be looking at something that becomes an investment you can cash in on eBay in a year or two. So moving on. Yes, it gets a little sadder. This one is from Jeff Jenkins, who's a writer at Metro News, the Voice of West Virginia. Longtime Radio Shack retail store owner closes doors with mixed emotions. Apparently, there's a Radio Shack that had still been open in the Charleston, West Virginia area. Gone too long, and he's having to pull out. So one less Radio Shack. Probably a recurring story these days would be my guess, but still a little sad to see. Got a picture of him with the "everything must go" going out of business signs up in the window. If you're in the Charleston, West Virginia area, there's still one more Radio Shack to plunder. So go check it out. All right, and this one I think is the last one. A similar story from written by Catherine Silver at clickorlando.com, which I assume is in the Orlando area of Florida. Anyway, owner pulls the plug on Orlando's last Radio Shack after 52 years in business. Store to turn into a smoke shop in 2023. So another Radio Shack, literally up in smoke. Well, maybe figuratively up in smoke. Sad to see another Radio Shack gone. Probably the best we can hope for these days is a nice quick death for some of these stores. But anyway, buck up. It is Christmas time. Hold on to your good cheer. So for now, I think that's the end of our news for this month. So why don't we take another break and then turn it around and come back with some feedback.
Boy, the cartridge games we played.
All the aliens we slayed.
Man, it was your own arcade.
Those were the days.
Loaded games from tape cassette.
Floppy drives incurred deep debt.
Wasted time with no regret.
Those were the days.
And you didn't need a hard drive then.
Line printers replaced your pen.
Mister, we could use a man like Charles Tandy again. BBS's ruled the day.
CompuServe took half your pay.
Fit it all in 64K.
Those were the days.
We sat and stared at glowing screens.
Typed in code from magazines.
but his loyalty was determined by their machines. When you had a job to do,
Basic always got you through.
accidentally typing new. Those were the days.
It's Operation, Milton Bradley's goofy game for dopey doctors. Now for the Tandy Color Computer 3. The operating table plugs into your color computer's cartridge slot. The computer assigns each player which procedure they are to perform.
Remove funny bone.
Careful. If you touch the sides... You blew it, Charlie. Funds are automatically removed from your account and you earn malpractice demerits. Your colleagues are suddenly busy at lunch. Next.
Take out wrenched ankle.
A winner. Funds are transferred to your account and you earn malpractice insurance points. Enjoy the ride home in your BMW 4 Series convertible.
I hate you.
Operation, a game for your color computer from Milton Bradley.
Operation is for entertainment purposes only. Operation should not be considered as any form of medical advice or medical training. Milton Bradley does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in his products. Reliance on any information provided by Operation is solely at your own risk. 128K Tandy Color Computer 3 with composite or RGB monitor required. Drink responsibly.
CoCo Cruisers, welcome to the feedback section. This time we really only have one feedback item. From Chet Simpson. If you recall, last month we did a news item about the Borchestra 180, which is Chet's project for a sound card that I think is envisioned to maybe be something in real hardware, but is currently he's implementing it in software for the emulator. His feedback is a quick follow-up on Borchestra 180 mentioned in this episode. The current documentation and programmer information is available via Google Docs. And the current implementation of the proof of concepts for VCC is on GitHub. And so if you look in the show notes, I've got Google Docs and the GitHub links there. So if you're looking for more information on Borchestra 180, it has made that available for you. So that's all the feedback we've got this time. Please feel free to reach out to us. Tell us what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong. Just tell us that you listened to the episode. Let us know that we're not just talking to ourselves. And again, that would be feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org, CoCoCrew.org. All right, well, that's the end of our feedback. So why don't we move on to the rest of the show.
For years, air fresheners have been used to hide unpleasant odors. But until now, your choices have always been wildflowers, potpourri, country spices, citrus, and other floral derivatives. That's all about to change with new Retro Fresh from Jackson & Jackson. Retro Fresh is a walk down memory lane. Each fragrant mist smells like your favorite retro computers. Salmon patties for dinner? Now it's the scent of printer ribbons, Apple IIs, and TRS-80s. Too many cats in the house? Now it's just the scent of heating power supplies, newly opened diskettes, and warm CRTs. Uncle Bob use your bathroom after the chili cook-off? Replace that offensive odor with the aroma of new computers. New Retro Fresh comes in 3 scents. Apple II and TRS-80s, warm power supply and CRTs, and new computer. It's like a VCF in a can. New Retro Fresh. Free yourself from the floral prison of other air fresheners.
Jackson & Jackson is an air freshener company.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. We're going to have a little host discussion. Given the time of year, the gift-giving season, if you're into this hobby and you're like me, quite often the gift giving is you giving a gift to yourself. Quite often something you have to pick up off of eBay or Goodwill or something like that. Quite often it's a little bit of a surprise. Wasn't really planning to buy this, but I found it and couldn't resist, sort of thing. So thought we'd talk a little bit about how do you handle things, finances and gift giving issues around the holidays. Do you have different buying rules during the holidays? Generally, how do you manage your retro computing hobby purchasing with your significant other, really whether it's the holidays or not? My birthday is in November, just a bit before Thanksgiving, but it kind of kicks off the holiday season there. So, it gets to be October-ish. I'm not supposed to buy anything for myself for a while. Told I'm hard to buy for. I don't know if that's really true, but that's the perception. And I think part of it is because, normally, thankfully, finances have been good enough that if I see something I want, generally, I, go and get it and, just order it or whatever. Kind of screws up the gift-giving opportunities for me, I guess. So when it gets to be close to my birthday and Christmas or whatever, I'm supposed to back off on some of that. And, and especially if there's anything that there's any chance that, a loved one would pick up for me, definitely should leave it alone. So anything I've got listed, say on like an Amazon wish list or something that, if suddenly there was a Radio Shack t-shirt available at, local store or whatever, I would know that I was not supposed to buy that because somebody else probably would. What about you guys? You have similar issues or any other kind of similar rules?
First of all, John, I want to say I don't think you're a hard man to buy for. I think a great gift for you for Christmas would be a box of cigars and an ascot.
Sounds great. Neil, how about you? You seem like you'd be hard to buy for.
No, because you know what I do? I drop some hints. Like it might be an eBay link or something, or something at a local store.
Links are good.
Or I'll just casually mention something, like a desolder station,
Oh, yeah.
A company called HACO.
I'd have to spend a week just explaining what the hell a desolder station is. That's the thing that for years I've probably, literally 20 years I've used Amazon wish list. It used to seem pretty cool. And I could, it goes back to when, Amazon just sold books. And so I had a wish list there and I could point people at it and said, here's my list of books and just pick a book and buy it for me. And I have books on programming and books on, Unix utilities and stuff like that. And then every year I'd hear, well, I looked at your list, but I didn't understand what any of them were. So I didn't buy them for you. And I was like, that's the whole point is I listed them out so you didn't have to understand. So just pick one. But, so I don't know how well the links would work for just anyone. Depends on how trained your loved ones are, I guess. But what about you, Mike?
Well, we get around that by for the same reasons. My wife and I, it's like, well, what am I buying you for Christmas this year? In fact, we've already purchased and getting this out before Christmas, so there's no surprise involved for us. But but then we always get what we want.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
as long as it doesn't devolve down to each of you getting the other a $20 gift card or something like that. It's kind of
right.
Here's your gift card. No thanks.
Right.
Which is more like how I do things with my mother-in-law.
Yeah. Then for the kids, we just give them money because it's it's always the right color and it's always the right size.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely understand that. Are there any other gotchas with the holidays and, retro gift giving or anything like that? So, one other issue that kind of relates to the holidays, is especially nowadays since everybody's ordering everything, on, Amazon or other online shopping, we get a ton of packages around Christmas time, but, traditionally that would mean the Christmas packages then having to jostle with my eBay shipments, to, overloading the delivery people. But I've scaled back, I guess, a bit on the eBay stuff these days. So the kids ordering their tennis shoes or whatever else on eBay, or I mean from Amazon or whatever, they get their spot on the truck. You guys give gifts to your delivery people or tip them or anything like that?
We never get the same one.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always somebody different.
Yeah, that's a problem. I lived in a small town. I could do that, and I did do that. But living in a larger metropolitan area, you probably have a dozen different people delivering stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially in the holidays, you start to get a bigger variety. It kind of depends. Normally in the past, at least, I'd keep enough eBay stuff shipping towards the house that I, had some idea. I'd sit out on the porch in the evenings and interact a little bit with the delivery people. So I felt like I knew some of them. And some of them actually did know because they have kids roughly the same age, would be in the schools together and stuff like that. But not as much anymore. But like I say, nowadays they swap out the delivery people, and I think half of them are Uber and Grubhub drivers, and whatever else 90% of the time, and they just kind of swap into the Amazon trucks on Wednesdays or whatever. Can we beat the topic to death?
I think so.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and hold on a little bit more, maybe for the rest of the show.
Is this you?
Oh my God, I've got 40 pages to print!
Tired of waiting on a slow serial attached printer? End the waiting with Blue Streak Ultima, the ultimate serial to parallel adapter.
Wow, I'll have this report ready in time for the meeting.
Just connect Blue Streak Ultima to your CoCo's built-in serial port and connect the other end to any printer with a 36-pin Centronics-compatible parallel printer port. Blue Streak Ultima works with any version CoCo. 7 switchable baud rates, 300 to 19.2. Select the desired baud rate with the easy-to-use selector knob. No jumpers, no hassle, just faster printing. Try it on your system for 30 days, risk-free. If you're not totally satisfied with the performance of Blue Streak Ultima, return it for a full refund. Blue Streak Ultima comes with a 1-year warranty and costs just $39.95. Blue Streak Ultima, the ultimate serial to parallel converter.
Okay, CoCo Cruisers, welcome to a special treat. We've got a little interview here. We're talking to Mr. Tim Lindner, who's been a part of the community for years. He's sort of our inside guy working on the MESS emulator.
MAME.
Or MAME, sorry. It was MESS.
It was.
Anyway, Tim he posts, he does things and posts videos once in a while, and one he posted recently caught my attention where he was demonstrating some of the capabilities of the VideoTex terminal, including the graphics and also uploading executable code to it. I think I have an idea where he got that information, but thought it might be cool to talk about the project overall. So that's what we've invited Tim here for. So I'm here. I'm John Linville. And we're joined, of course, by the host. Hello, Neil.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hello, everybody, and welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
Good. And, of course, Mr. Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
Good evening.
And, of course, hello, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm looking forward to the interview and talking about the Ag Vision.
Awesome. So maybe I should just give you a chance to kind of lay out sketch out the project that you're working there. Obviously, you're investigating the Ag Vision. You've added that to the MAME emulation. Managed to dig up the information on how the protocol works for the VideoTex to be able to send pictures and executables and all that sort of stuff. Why don't you tell us about your project?
Well, it all started a few months ago when someone on Facebook posted the ROM image for the Ag Vision. And in the message, I'd always been interested in the Ag Vision, being a 6809 computer that predated the CoCo and had a very similar form factor. And so when I saw that the ROM dump was posted, I decided to create the MAME driver. I decided that it needed to be in MAME. So I did some digging around for information, and I found on the Color Computer Archive, I found the technical document.
I think I've seen that document. It's several pages, but defines the messaging that goes back and forth.
It's a real treasure trove of information of the entire protocol that the VideoTex terminal supports. And the ROM was so small. At first I said, this all can't be implemented. This has to be, what they really wanted to do, but it can't all be in there. But it turned out it was. So I threw together the driver, and it's really bad form in the main project to put together something and not test it.
Sure.
So I definitely want to thank George Phillips. He is the co-author of TRS-80GP. He has a VideoTex emulation in his emulator, and he did all the hard work of figuring out where all the hardware bits and bobs were in the VideoTex. And he did that just from the VideoTex ROM.
Oh,
and
that's
so
pretty cool.
he really, and I credited him in the MAME source. He made it a bunch easier to get that up and running. But like I said, it needed to be tested. I was, able to send and receive characters just like any other terminal program from MAME. But, I had all these other features that I would really wanted to see. Can you imagine getting a videotape of what Ag Vision actually looked like? That would be so cool. But, the next best thing is to write a server to exercise all the features.
Definitely cool. Definitely another one of those projects on the list. Too far down to have actually gotten to, but it's good to see someone do it and learn something about an interesting piece of history. Did you test it on real hardware then?
No, I did not. I don't own an Ag Vision. I only tested it under the MAME emulator.
Okay. I was curious if so one thing I've thought about doing is basically hacking it to kind of bypass the modem and then using it, the TTY level RS-232.
Yeah.
And I haven't been, interested, I guess, or brave enough to do it.
Well, the machine, even the VideoTex machines, they're very rare, and hacking it to enable RS-232 out would be kind of invasive.
Yeah. It does seem like that'd be kind of cool to do, and especially now that you've exercised the protocol, at least validated the document, if nothing else. You could use it to, like say, put up pictures or maybe explore the binaries to see what you can get it to do.
The only thing in that document that I found to be incorrect was there's a command to change the cursor color, and it didn't seem to work. But displaying of pictures, the big one, and the loading up of executables all worked as described.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And on the Color Computer Archive, it's called the VideoTex Software Specification. It's a 13-page document that reads like an engineer wrote it.
Well, it's good to have some confidence in the document because my career as a software developer suggests that not all documents are worth the ink that you've put on the paper.
Exactly.
But it's good to hear that one is potentially valid. So, when you implemented your server, what language did you use for the implementation, and what did it run on?
I used Python 3, and I tested it both under Windows and a Mac OS 10.
Okay. So, I mean, is that code available, or does somebody have to sweet talk you for it, or?
It is on my personal GitHub. Maybe you'll have a link to the video I made, because in that video description is a link to the GitHub project.
Cool. Yeah, I have that link. We'll put it in the show notes. Very good there. One thing I was always been a little curious about, especially since I discovered that document, but again, didn't bother to dig into it. But so the CoCo had a cartridge called VideoTex. Do those specifications apply to that cartridge as well? If you plug that cartridge into your CoCo, will it act like a VideoTex terminal? So that
yes, it will.
That level of detail.
Yep, it's the same program with minor modifications to run on the CoCo hardware.
Okay, cool. Well, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, so it will display the pictures. It will let you load the code. Bing, bang, boom.
So now we just need someone to invent a cool application, and they don't have to worry about the lack of VideoTex machines.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Python server only talks to a TCP/IP port, which is what MAME provides. It would have to be modified to talk to a real serial port, to talk to a real AgVision or a VideoTex terminal.
Sure. That's not too difficult, I think.
No, not at all.
Given my meager experience in the lands of Python.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity to learn about Python.
Yeah. When everybody was doing deload servers, I took the opportunity to implement one in Python to round out my Python skills, and that's pretty much the full roundness. Other hosts, do you have any thoughts or questions for Tim?
I think you covered what I was going to talk about, because I was interested in the comparison to VidTex, the cartridge. So I guess our plan to convert CoCos into VidTex terminals and make a bundle on eBay may come to fruition finally.
There you go.
Yeah, just slap the cartridge in the side.
That's right.
I think it's interesting how the AgVision and the VideoTex motherboards. I think it's really interesting on how closely they resemble a CoCo motherboard, and even in the fact that they have a place for a cartridge port, which would certainly not exist. And it just makes me think that the CoCo was made first, and these other machines were sort of modified based on the CoCo.
Yeah, they definitely have some similarity. That people talk about having a Rev C or whatever, or a Rev whatever CoCo 1, but they only go so far back with the letters, F board and E board and all that. Maybe the VidTex was the B board or A board.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it.
It would make some sense, right? But
if you ever do try to rig in an RS-232 port, one complicating factor is that the modem that's built into those devices toggles one of the PIA pins at a frequency that I'm actually not quite sure about, and the software requires that to be toggled at that specific frequency. So if you took out the modem, you would have to either modify the ROM to no longer expect that, or somehow generate it independently.
Huh.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting. I wonder what the thinking was there.
Well, it used it as a carrier detect to make sure that it's connected. And when the signal is gone, the software thinks the modem is hung up.
Huh. Well, there's something to think about.
Yeah. Nothing's easy, right?
Now, did you say the ROM on the AgVision is identical?
It's the code is identical. There's a token in the code that is different between the AgVision, between the VideoTex computer, and the VideoTex CoCo cartridge. The host software can request a ID from the software, from the client software, and each of those three different versions of VideoTex has a different code. And then in what's called block protocol, the protocol where programs and pictures are exchanged and screens are exchanged. That's another feature of the software. You could, before you connected online, you could type in a screen or two of information and then tell the host software to retrieve it all in one quick batch. And during that process, a different code is sent at the end of each block that is different from each of those 3 different versions of the software.
That's interesting. I enjoyed watching that in your video covering the how you fill up the block and then reference the page.
Right. Throw up a hex editor so you know it's good quality YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Is there any ulterior motive? Is there any bigger project at the end of all that, or is this just your latest adventure?
MAME is, the little bits and pieces of MAME is my baby. So I love adding things to it. I love fixing bugs. So whenever something new comes up that I can sort of put my name on, I go, oh, I could do that.
That's
so
cool.
I do.
That's cool. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, so many things are already emulated. It's the high-hanging fruit that are left.
Everyone look around, see if you've got some weird CoCo hardware that you could loan to Tim and give him
what I really want to do is some video digitizers. I'd love to get MAME to emulate some video digitizers. I remember a few years ago when me and you back and forth were bidding against each other on a DS69B. Well, that was fun times.
Yeah, well, that'd be interesting. I'd like to know more about how those actually work.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's ridiculous in a sense now because it's for a TV standard that basically is unused now, but still be cool to figure it out.
Yeah, get it to work and show people what it used to look like.
Yeah,
that's right. I'm surprised there's not been any repros of those things.
Of the DS69B and other the Micron I. Do you guys remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah, that would be fun.
The sync separation chips that made some of that stuff a little more manageable. Though those chips are still fairly available, I think. You can get a sleeve of them for a few bucks if you can find them. So what was the LM1883 or something like that. Anyway, if you feel like building something like that, at least the parts are available.
There are some outstanding questions regarding the AgVision and VideoTex. I've asked these questions to multiple people who own machines, and nobody's ever gotten back to me. But there's some pins on the PIA that are unaccounted for that may be connected to something. There's a 8-bit flip-flop, which we only know about 5 of the bits. The 3 other bits may be connected to something. They may be unused. So things like that. If you have a VideoTex or an AgVision, contact me, and I can send you a list of questions if you have a digital multimeter.
Cool. And of course, here's my occasional advertisement. If you have an AgVision that you want to sell, and Tim doesn't beat you over the head first,
no,
feel free to reach out to me. I may be generous, not as generous as I used to would have been, but I have, interest has waned a little bit, but I still make a very generous offer.
I'd love to see that blue in person. I bet it's got to be incredible.
It is a really nice style choice, a really nice, design choice or whatever for that color. I wish they had I wish they'd have made the CoCo that color, and it would have been a little prettier, but that or the red that the Alice used. Oh well.
Oh yeah.
Tim, I'm happy that you maintain your interest in MAME and the CoCo, and it's great that somebody is care tending there, taking care of that, and like I said, wrestling the bugs as they pop up. Definitely good to have that, to have someone taking care of those things, because some of the emulations do rot, and I'm sure you've seen it time to time. There'll be features that fall out that used to work and now they don't.
Yeah, we're none of us are using the Vivsor emulator anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Partly because of DOS, but Tim, thank you for joining us. Like I say, keep in touch and let us know if there's anything you need to amend or whatever.
Oh, no problem. It's all good.
Otherwise, I hope you'll enjoy the holidays and a good coming year.
Thank you so much for having me.
Why buy just a video game from Atari or Intellivision? Invest in the TRS-80 color computer from Radio Shack. Unlike games, it has a real computer keyboard. With the TRS-80 color computer, the whole family can learn computing at home. Plays great games, too. Under $300, the TRS-80 color computer. Only from Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
A division of Touchstone Technologies.
Welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 91 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. First off, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. This is our holiday episode after all. For this month, I figured I'd review another new game from Nick Marentes, the fellow CoCo coder from Australia. This game is called Jumping Joey, Frogger Goes Down Under, and just as the title says, it's a remake of the arcade game Frogger by Konami, but given an Australian update. First off, for anyone who hasn't played or heard of the game Frogger, the object of the game is to get your frog safely across the river, avoiding obstacles along the way. With Jumping Joey, you have an added extra playing field area. Instead of a frog, you control Joey, which is a kangaroo. You start out on the first playing field, which is 5 lanes of traffic. If you make it across the traffic, the next playing field is a cattle stockyard. And finally, if you made it through the cattle, you're on to the last playing field of a flowing river with riding logs, hungry crocodiles, and submerging turtles to reach home on the other side. You must complete this 6 times, each time getting faster and more difficult. This game is very well done and a big improvement to the original Frogger game. The great news is Jumping Joey is designed to run on any model color computer or Dragon with a minimum of 32K memory. Upon boot up, you are asked if this game is being run in an emulator. It will then ask you if you're using an RGB or composite monitor. The graphics are done in Semi-Graphics Mode 12, 64 by 96 resolution, with a full 8 colors provided. Nick has made great use of the colors with smooth animation scrolling. Also as a bonus, there is in-game Australian chiptune music playing in the background. You also have your standard sound effects. You can toggle the music on or off by pressing M during the game. Gameplay is controlled either by keyboard or joystick. The keyboard uses the arrow keys for motion, and on a CoCo 3 you can also use Alt and Control for up and down to allow the same layout as a CoCo 1 and 2 keyboard, for those that prefer that layout. If you'd like to play this game, you can purchase it from Nick directly on his website. You can buy it as a digital download for $8 US currency, and it will be emailed to you right away. The zip archive will provide you with a PDF file for manual, a DSK file, and a cassette and WAV file. This way you'll have all the options to play this game depending on your current real CoCo or emulated setup. You can even create an original cassette with the WAV file or floppy disk with the DSK image if you wish to do so. The other option is to pay $15 US currency to buy a physical copy of this game mailed to you on a CD, which contains 2 other games Nick has recently coded. One is called Pipes and the other one is Rally SG. So if you don't already own those games, it might be best to spring for the physical copy. And for those of you who are antsy and don't want to wait for the game to arrive in the snail mail, Nick will also email you a copy of Jumping Joey directly to your email address, so you can get playing right away. Well, there you have it. If you are bored over the holidays, you have another new game to play on your CoCo. You will also be supporting a fellow CoCo Games coder to inspire future games. Well, until next year, happy CoCoing and game on.
You know, you and me, we've been together for a long time. And when you're working so hard, things can get a little hot. And you've got to find a way to cool it down. Cool down your color computer with the CoCo Cooler from REM Industries. It brings down the operating temperature to ambient, regardless of accessory load. Reduces temperature of the entire computer, not just the SAM chip. Easy 1-minute installation, and it's just $39.95. And now offering the CoCo Cooler 2. It's the same price and the same fit for the color computer too. Don't let your color computer get too hot. Cool it down with the CoCo Cooler.
For fastest service, send money order or certified check. Add $2 shipping for continental U.S. Add $4 shipping for Alaska, Hawaii, Canada, and APOs. Add $15 shipping for overseas. Add $3 for 220 to 250 volt model. California residents add 6.5% sales tax. Will ship COD on USA shipments only. All merchandise shipped from stock. CoCo Cooler is a product of REM Industries Incorporated, Chatsworth, California.
Well, it's that time again. We've reached the end of the podcast and the year. 2022 and episode 91 are in the can. As usual, I'd like to thank our host John Linville for procuring all the news articles and providing us with informative tech segments. Mike Rowan for painstakingly editing the podcast and creating those fun commercials. Boise Pete, our CoCo historian. He remembers it, so you don't have to. I'd also like to thank Tim Lindner for giving us some of your time to record an interview with you. Last but not least, all of you who listen and support us each month. We also appreciate your feedback. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year, everyone. Until next year, happy CoCoing and retro forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully. CoCo. 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 Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway? It's a blast from the past.